Hi, everybody. It's Nadine Gilkison. If you don't know me, I'm the District Technology Integration Specialist at Franklin Township Schools, and I'm offering this PD in case anyone wants to know some tips about how to design digital content. Okay? I actually have down in the description, it actually has the information so that you guys can go ahead and click on the presentation that I'm going to be in just a moment. And I'm going to get started with going through how to do things. So a little bit of background about myself. This is going on my 6th year doing the position that I'm doing right now for technology integration. And so what I do is I actually am the sole person for my district. So I cover kindergarten through 12th grade. A little bit of background about our district. We are one-to-one and bring your own device in grades 6 through 12 at our secondary levels. In the elementary, we are what I like to call cart saturated with Chromebooks. And so when we are using the Chromebooks, you know, they have different ratios that they're using them in the classrooms. More info about me. I have presented at several conferences, the Indiana Google Summit, the ICE conference in Indiana. We also have the HEC conference. I am a Google certified educator. This year, I became a Google certified innovator with part of the cohort NYC 19. And my project actually focuses on dyslexia. So a future PD that I'm going to offer is going to be called Tech Abilities for Struggling Readers. So if you're tuning in today, each Monday from 12 to 3, I'll be offering district PD for my teachers. But even if you're not part of Franklin Township, you're welcome to join. So if any of you know about other teachers that might be interested in getting PD, they can either join me live like you are right now, or this will automatically save as a recording and you can share with them the recording. All they have to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel and then they can see how all the upcoming PD schedules and everything that I have coming up. So again, if you guys want to find the presentation, it's in the description of this. It's going to be down at the bottom and it's going to link to a document that says tips to design content digitally. Also, if you want to share out who you are and where you're from, you're welcome to do that as well. I'm going to try to go through the PD and then I'll have some Q&A time towards the end. So if you guys have any questions about anything, then you can. One thing that I will tell you that's going to help today, if you're able to have an additional tab open on the device that you're watching this on, if you're able to, if you want to type in slides.new, then as I'm talking about some of the things today, you could actually play around with it. But if you don't want to, if you want to do that and save that to do it on your own time, that's fine as well. But I'm going to get ready to share my screen and we're going to get started. All righty. Okay, so you guys will be on this slide where it says tips to help you design content digitally. I've purposely added in a blank slide so that I can kind of demonstrate things as I'm doing the presentation today. So when I jump right in, I'm going to go ahead and hop to slide 3 and talk about it first. So people ask me all the time about different ways to add flair to slides. So if you want to do that, one of the benefits, if you have a smartphone, there's lots of apps where you can do all kinds of awesome cool things. Snapchat, if you want to do your filters when you're recording a video. But people always ask me all the time, like, how do I get that from my phone and then get it to Google Slides? So what the process that I use to do this is that I'll either record something in Snapchat or one of the other ones that you see mentioned here, which I'll get to those in a minute. And then I typically will I'll save it to my phone. I'll save the video to my phone. And then it gives you the option that you can share out that video clip to your email or to another platform. So I typically just email it to myself. And then when I email it to myself, now I can have access to that video clip, and it's easier for me to insert it into Google Slides. And if you're not familiar, whenever you tap on insert, that's where you can get access to video. Okay. One of the other options that's listed on here is called And Then I Was Like. So this is a website that allows you to do your own animated GIFs. So I'm actually doing this entire live stream with a Chromebook that I purchased. And a lot of times people will say, well, if I'm on a Chromebook and I want to create an animated GIF, how can I do that? So the site And Then I Was Like is one where you can do that. So it literally just taps into the webcam that's part of your Chromebook. And then it has you count down 3 seconds, and then you can see a sample right here that I was doing to demonstrate for our teachers. Another one that I like to use is called Emoji Me, and that is actually an app for the iPhone. And so it allows me to have these different animated GIFs of myself as an emoji. Again, the same process is that you're going to save it as a video file, and then you can email it to yourself, and then that's an easy way. You could even just directly save it to your Google Drive from your phone, and then you can find the file when you go to insert and you go to video. It's going to give you different options on here, and so Google Drive is one of them. So if you save the file to Google Drive, that's where you can find it. All right, same concept with GIFGab. I love GIFGab. Now, keep in mind, I am not saying that this is one that you're going to want to share with all of your students. It's definitely one that is for adults only. So when you're using GIFGab, that's one that's great. So you see like the cereal box. It has tons of really cool ones in here. It's made by the same company that does JibJab, but it's just strict animated GIFs. I want to go back to that option of Emoji Me, and keep in mind, if you have an Apple product, then you can do the option of being able to add your Memoji. So you can go and create a video with your Memoji head, and then you can insert that as an option as well. So just think about different ways that you can blend the two. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I'm going to take a moment and see if we have any questions so far. This was not a question, but thanks so much. Awesome that you're sharing with everyone all the templates and everything. That's great. So all of these tips that I'm showing today are a lot of the ways that I'm making my templates. And again, there's a lot of people that ask me, how do you do this? Or how do you do that? So that's really what this session is all about. All right. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and I'm going to move on to the next topic here. So the next one that's going to be an option is going to be sites to use for images. Let's talk about that for a moment. So we've got some different options on here, and I'm going to start by talking about Unsplash is actually one of my favorites, and I actually have that listed on a different one, but I'm going to demo it for you. So it's called a Google add-on, and so what that will do is it will allow you to add some really cool options onto your slide. So when you go to add-ons, if you don't have it already, then you're going to go to the word Get Add-ons. I already have it, so it's listed as Unsplash Images. So when I tap on Unsplash Images, I'm going to select Insert an Unsplash Photo. and then it's going to pop up. So I would say probably 99% of the time, whenever I'm starting with a background, I'm using Unsplash photos. So as a demonstration, I'm going to go here to slide 2. And let's say that I was looking for something that had a desk on the background of it. So what I love about Unsplash, if you're not using it, I can't stress enough that you need to use Unsplash, is because it's high resolution photographs that you can use in your presentations freely. They even say that you can use it commercially if you want to do that as well. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to pick one. Typically, whenever I'm trying to pick my backgrounds with this, I do purposely try to pick something that may have some open white space on the side. And it looks like that image is giving me some issues. So I'm going to pick a different one than that one. Since that one's giving me problems, let me try this one and see if it comes up any faster. And if not, oh, there we go. So with this one, and I'm not sure why, but they always default with the little tiny gray line. So I typically go in here to the color border and then I select transparent. So now I've got this cool looking background on here, but I want to layer in text. Now you notice I said I try to pick something that has that white space, so then it's kind of built in where I can layer in a text box. But what if it doesn't have that? If it's something that's kind of busy and I want to go ahead and add a text box, when I'm done showing you some of these different image sites, we'll talk next about some different ways for you to be able to layer that in. But I definitely, when I talk about images, Unsplash is my go-to. I even get people that think that I actually take the photographs, which I'm flattered, but I immediately say, no. You know, I'm always crediting that comes from Unsplash. All right. So let's talk about some of the other sites that you can use for this as well. Flat Icon would be the second most popular add-on that I use. Now, it changed the name. If you were using it before, it used to say buy Flat Icon on here, and now it doesn't say that. So if you're looking for it, it says Icons for Slides and Docs. That is now the name of the add-on for Flat Icon. So I'm going to hit start on mine. And when it pops up, this is where you get some really awesome icons that pop up here. So I'm going to select one that looks like a house. So I've got on here that I can select the different size. Now, pixels are something that you want to pay attention to whenever you're picking out an image. The smaller the pixels, the less quality. In other words, it's going to be more pixelated. So I automatically jump to the 512. And when I hit insert, then it's actually going to pop up on my screen right here. So I'm going to actually move this guy over to my test one. So I'm going to hit copy and I'm going to go out over to this slide and paste him in. Now I want to demonstrate a couple of things with this. Now, obviously I don't need it this big, but again, I did it the larger size so that it's not pixelated. Now, if I hold down Control Alt while the image is selected and I tap on the letter J, it's going to make it smaller. If I hold down Control, Alt, and K, it's going to make the image bigger. I use that trick all the time instead of me trying to go diagonal and make those selections. So I get it to the size that I want it. I have it placed on the slide, but there's one other little feature that I always like to add. So I come here to Format Options, and when I tap on it, I always tap Drop Shadow. Now, you might think that it didn't really do much, but what it does is it adds just a tiny little shadow that's dropped underneath it. And it's something that designers like to see because it makes an image pop out just a teeny bit more. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. So Flat Icon, Unsplash, those are my first two big go-tos. Now, Joy Pixels is another one. So for this one, it used to be called, oh my gosh, Emoji One. That's what it used to be called. So now it's called Joy Pixels. And when you tap on this, it's going to launch out to it. And this one is where I get the different emojis. Now, keep in mind, there's different versions. They have a free version that you can use their emojis, and they also have a paid. And of course, the free version is only going to let you have access to it for a certain pixel ratio. It's not the best, but hey, it's free, and I'm all about free. So if you tap on emojis, then this is where you can take a look at the different options that you have. So on here, they've got, different items that are on here that you can choose, your icons, and so on. It's not an add-on. I can tell you that, that Joy Pixels is not an add-on. Instead, it is where you are going to have to actually go out to the site, and I typically download that one, and then I'm inserting it into my slides. And of course, as always, to be copyright friendly, you need to attribute, where it is that you're getting that from. Bitmoji is the next one that is one of my most popular ones that I use. Now, this one is a Chrome extension. Sometimes I get teachers where they get confused between an extension and an add-on. So an add-on is located directly inside of Google Slides. That's when in each one of these, Google Docs, Google Slides, Sheets, Forms, any of those. When it says add-ons, the best way I can describe an add-on is that it's an additional program that somebody outside of Google has created that other people can use, okay? An extension is something that works with the Chrome browser. So as long as you're running Chrome, then you can add an extension. So Bitmoji actually has a Chrome extension, and I use it all the time. And so literally, whenever you link your Bitmoji account, I can literally do a 2-finger touch on a Chromebook and do copy image, and then I can come back to my test slide here, and I can do Control V, and then it's going to insert it onto the slide. Now, again, anytime that I add those, I also like to do the drop shadow. So now when I added the drop shadow, you can probably see around this heart that it's got a little bit of an accent there. And again, if I want to make it smaller or bigger, I can. One of the things that I'll talk about today is when you're designing slides, I typically, and I'll say honestly, my mom was an artist, and before she passed away, she was actually out doing presentations on painting and a lot of things with art. So I know that's where I've developed this passion. I just consider myself that I love to do digital graphic design just as kind of like a side hobby. So the art elements out of that I always like to pull in is when you think like an artist, you're going to have a focal point on your slide. So I always ask teachers, what is it that you want somebody to notice first when they take a look at your slide? So for instance, I'm going to go back to this title slide, and ironically enough, I picked the exact same image that I have on my title. But you're going to notice I've got a Bitmoji and I've got a speech bubble in here. But I'm hoping that your eye draws to the wording that you're seeing on here first. But if it happens to be that it's the Bitmoji, that's okay. But it should be that you don't have so much information on a slide that somebody can't tell where to look first. That is what I call that it's just too busy. Okay. So I'm going to go back to these sites for images. And Pixabay has been around for a long time. It's definitely one that you can use. The one beef I guess I have with Pixabay is that the images just aren't that great. So that's why I tend to use Unsplash and use Flat Icon and use emojis. I've found that if I'm using icons more, then it makes the slide more simple and it allows me to focus on what it is that I want. But everybody loves animated GIFs, okay? People want to be able to add those things too. If you haven't added the Giphy A Chrome extension, again, that's a Chrome extension, so it's going to be living up at the top here. You can add that, and the Giphy Chrome extension will allow you to insert GIFs directly into your slides. All right. FreePic is a site that I stumbled across when I was looking for vector graphics. Okay. And so FreePic, and I'll actually pull it up here. FreePic is another site that it has free and premium. So it has a mixture of both. But I get everything that I use out of it. I always use the free, and they have a ton of free that are on here. So you might be asking yourself, what's the difference between a vector graphic and like a PNG and so on? So if you need to know the difference, I'm actually going to stop my screen share here for a minute. If you need to know the difference between these, I'll explain that to you. So a PNG means that the background is going to be transparent. All right, you might see it where it has a checkerboard behind it. The worst thing ever is when you're putting an image on and it's got that solid white background, and that's kind of like my pet peeve. I always want to make sure that it doesn't have the white background. So one of the things I do is when I'm searching for images, I make sure that I'm looking for a PNG image. If I want to make my own image, then I can make one in Google Drawings. And when I make it in Google Drawings, I can actually save it as a PNG. If you've ever noticed inside of Google Drawings, it automatically has that checkered background. So if I want to actually take the drawing tools and make my own drawing, I could then save that and it would already have the clear background. So that's kind of the cool part about that. A vector. So a vector actually means that when you save it as an SVG file or a vector file, that no matter how big that you stretch it, it's not going to get pixelated. That's the best way to describe it. Typically, if you're trying to make a t-shirt, a banner, a large poster, something like that, even if you're trying to do it through another company, they'll ask you if you have a vector file or an SVG file. And again, what that means is that you have a file that isn't going to get pixelated. So people will say all the time, well, I made this in Google Slides or I made it in another platform, but they need it as an SVG file. So make it in Google Drawings, and then you can download it as a vector file, if that makes sense. And on the on here, let me go back to, oh, hold on a second. I'm going to go back to the presentation here. I'll make it a little bigger for you guys to be able to see it. So on here, I have actually pictures of drawings that I've actually done. So that's what I was talking about over here. Better yet, make your own in Google Drawings. So on here is actually, I had my daughter, Mackenzie, I said, why don't you draw a picture of me? So she drew this picture of me. And then I went into Google Drawings and I actually outlined the different pieces of that image. And then I was basically able to like cartoon the actual just paper pencil drawing that she did. I'll offer a whole nother session that's on nothing but Google Drawings. Today, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of information about it in case you're curious about it. So I'll move on to the virtual letterboard. Let's move on to that one. If you haven't used this site, it's really cool. Literally, if you tap on this image, when you tap on it, it just takes you out to a site that says virtual letterboard. I love it, and I love that it's free. So I can literally come over here and type in virtual PD with Nadine G. And then with that, it'll just pop up here. Then I've got some different customized options. Notice I can change the spacing of it if I want it really close together or not. I can change the size of it. Ooh, that's definitely way too big. But I can make it smaller, bigger. I tend to keep it at the 3/4. You can also change the background of it and what it looks like, which I think is pretty cool as well. There's also different sizes. There's different types of boards. So if you need to type a lot, you could actually have that in there. This kind of reminds me of like a diner menu, but I know that they've become more popular. Then literally when you're done, you just hit save image. And then, and again, I'm on a Chromebook. So if I hit save image, if I just simply hit copy to clipboard, I can come back over here to my test slide and I can paste it into here. And that's where you're going to see it appear. Now, obviously I chose a really small one, so it's not going to look the best, but hopefully you guys get the idea. I know I've seen several teachers that have used this concept and they really like it a lot. So that's that one. I really already covered the Unsplash add-on when I started off the PD today because it's always my number one. I do want to go ahead to where it says transparent overlays. So we're going to talk about that next. So the easiest way for me to demonstrate that is for me to come back to this slide. And I'm actually going to be clicking on the shape icon. So where it says shapes, I'm going to select the one that is a rectangle. And I'm going to hold down and I'm going to drag. When I let go, it's going to just make that rectangle. Now, typically when I like to do this overlay, I like to make sure that I keep it a gray shape or a gray color. If I choose a different color, it just doesn't look as well. So now that I've gone into here, the next thing I usually do is I am going to tap on the border and I'm going to make it transparent. Then I'm going to tap on the paint can. And again, all this has to happen while it's selected. If it's not selected, then it's not going to work. So then I'm going to come down here to the word custom. When I select custom, I notice that there's a bar down here that says transparency, and I can go as transparent as what I want. So I usually like to go about halfway. And now you guys can still see that image of the keyboard. And even when I click off of it, you can see that faint outline in there. So I'm actually going to select a darker Unsplash background so that way you guys can see the effect even a little better. And I know I've got a beach scene in here, so I'll actually just go ahead and pick, I think this is a lake. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one. So that way you guys can see my text box just a little bit easier. I'll actually stop the screen share while that's loading, and I'll take a look and see if you guys have any questions. Feel free to go ahead and pop your questions in now, and I can go ahead and kind of answer as we go. That way you guys aren't having to wait on me constantly until the end of this. So again, feel free to just pop it in the chat, and then if it pops up, I can answer any questions that you have. So far, we must be good because I don't see any, which is nice. It looks like my image is not wanting to load. It's being a little finicky, so I'm going to pick a different one that I can get on here easier. So bear with me for just a moment. Let me try this one and see if it pops up for me. All right. Okie dokie. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. And then I pulled up a different background that's going to work better. All right. So on this one, I have this image, and I'm actually going to teach you another tip or trick that I use. So notice how this automatically went to the front. If you want to know a shortcut of how to immediately put it to the back, I take two fingers and I'm going to hold down Control and Shift while the image is selected. And now with my other hand, I'm going to select the down arrow. So now when I did that, it just put it to the very back. Now, when I want to get rid of this other background, I'm just going to tap backspace, and now it's here. So now you probably can notice how it's a lot easier for you to see that text box compared to a dark background. Now, when you want to type on it, I just put something simple in there. If you didn't know this trick, maybe you do. If I double tap, then it will highlight one word. If I triple tap, it will actually highlight all of the text that I've added. So that way I'm not having to try to like drag my finger if I'm not using a mouse and I'm trying to highlight everything. These are tips that I actually teach students when I come into classrooms and I do lessons, but adults like to hear these tips too. So when I come into the font, my new favorite right now is Lato, L-A-T-O. And I tend to like to make it light. So it takes it a moment here. And then I obviously want to make it pretty big so that people can see it really well. And so fonts are a whole nother discussion about this. Number one, people will say to me, oh, that's one thing that frustrates me about Google is that I don't like all of the preloaded fonts. Well, don't forget that you can always go down here and you can select more fonts, and they have a bunch more that you can load. If you are in Google Docs, a extension that I use all the time is Extensis Fonts, and that is EXTENSIS, Extensis Fonts. Now, I wish they had it for Google Slides, but I will tell you that I have come up with a hack that if I'm typing something in Google Slides with a particular font that I got from there and I copy and I paste it into Google Slides, it works. So then all of a sudden now I have that font in Google Slides. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew about that option. Okay. But as always, like when I'm telling students, when you're deciding on a font that you want to use, make sure that it's something that's easy to read. If you're picking something that is a scripty font, different things like that, then it does make it very hard. I've been trying to as well, because I've been reading different posts about graphic design. I'm trying to limit the number of fonts that are used in a presentation. So for instance, I use that Lato font for the top here, and notice that fonts have different versions. Like if it says light, normal, and so on, you can have the same font, but it can look differently for you. There's been a lot of research that says that if you have more than 2 different kinds of font on a presentation, that it's too distracting for the person that's taking a look at it. So make sure that you keep that in mind when you are designing. Okay. And I want to say that there is, I know I've searched this before, different font pairings. Here we go, fontpair.co. So this site is really cool. So FontPair is going to tell you, when I just told you, hey, there's 2 font pairings that you want to put together. If you're not sure which ones look good together, then just scroll through this, and I'll add it on our chat so that way you guys can find it if you're not watching it live. So take a look at the different options that they're giving here, because those are really good. Okay. So font pair. Alrighty. So now we've done a transparent overlay. We have done some text. Sometimes if I want it to stand out even more, I will highlight it. And then after I highlight it, then I'll add a drop shadow to the text as well. But sometimes I think it looks better if the text doesn't have it. Like sometimes it looks cool, sometimes not. So kind of use your best judgment with that. Okay. All right. I'm going to skip and actually come down to slide 9, which also talks about lettering, since we're kind of talking about that right now. If you're still wanting to find better lettering, then I always tell people about this site, Flaming Text. I know the name of it sounds really wacko, but if you go to Flaming Text, then that way, it's easier for you guys to be able to find some fonts that you want. So there's a bunch. There's no way I can highlight all of the ones that are on here. But let's say that I wanted to pick the one. I'll go with the first one. If I wanted to pick this one, then I'm going to go to Edit Logo. And then I can choose the text, you know, logo, shadow, background. And then once I get to the word image and I get to done, then I have the option that I can right click it and I can download it. So that way I have that as an option. So see right here, it says free for personal and academic use. If you're going to use it commercially, that's when you need to buy it. So as long as you're just using this for educational purposes, you are perfectly fine with using flaming text as an option. Now, obviously, again, that's another one that I would recommend for adults to use to ramp up what they're doing. I know I had to actually ask our IT to unblock it because when you hear the name, obviously you're thinking awful things. So I just wanted you to know that. All right. So I'm going to stop the share. I wanted to take a look at the chat and see if anybody has any other questions. Okay. So I do have some questions. So Carrie asked, hi, Carrie. In the description of the YouTube, what you're watching right now, down in the description is a link to the Google Slides that I'm going through. And Brittany, hello. The same question as Carrie. You want to define the slides that I'm using, and it's in the description of this video. Will take you to a link to this presentation. Okay? So that way you can find it. And Judith, you're so sweet. Thanks so much. Aw, that's nice. That made my day. So now that I've taken a look at that, and again, feel free to pop up any questions and I'll come back over and look at the chat again in a few minutes. And also, Carrie, since you're in here, to get your PGP points if you're with our district, I also added the link to get the PGP points in the description as well. So Diane, you're saying that you don't see the flaming text page. I guess what I wanted to ask first, Diane, is if you're in the presentation that I'm presenting from, and it's the one that's the tips to design content digitally. And again, the link is down in the description. And then I'm trying to call out the slide number that I'm on so that way you'll know. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and then let me know if you're still having issues. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hop back in here. So if you're in the presentation, I'm actually on slide 9. So that's where I'm at for the flaming text lettering. All right. So another item that I want to talk about is how you can add audio to your slides. That has been a huge game changer for me for people being able to add audio to slides. So I wanted to kind of go over my process because yes, it's there, but it's not intuitive. It's not the easiest to navigate. First of all, you have to have an outside source. Google doesn't have it where you just hit audio and then you record your voice and it magically appears. That's not there yet. What they want you to do is you need to go to an outside source. The one that I prefer to use is called Online Voice Recorder. So I can't remember if I linked it in here or not. It looks like I did not. So I'll go ahead and I'll type it in on Google. So as soon as I type it in, Online Voice Recorder is going to pop up. And this is literally what it looks like. It's very easy. And then it's going to say to tap the button to start recording. So I'm recording my voice right now as a test. When I'm done, I'm going to hit stop. Then I have this little sound file here. The cool part is that it does, and remember, this is free. It's not like iMovie or something. I can actually come in here and I can crop out like the dead space. It doesn't get all fancy where I can like come here and splice it. It just lets me cut off things that I may have at the end. So when I tap save, it just downloaded it to my Chromebook. Okay. So that's the first phase of that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go out to my Google Drive. So the next tip that I'm going to give you is something that I would recommend that you do inside of your Google Drive anytime that you're wanting to record audio. And this is kind of a one and done deal. Like you shouldn't have to go in and add a bunch of other things. So of course, since I'm live, it's being a little persnickety with me. What you're going to do is you're going to tap on the word new and you're going to create a new folder. I've already done this step, so while mine's loading, just so you know that. That new folder, when it's created, you are actually going to name that folder #audio. That's the name I used for mine. Now, I'm not saying that to be trendy, but if you notice anything that I have named that has the hashtag in front of it, it defaults it to the top of my Google Drive. So it makes it a lot easier for me to be able to find that file. So what you're going to do once you make that file folder, and the cool part about this once I tell you this option is it's a one and done. You make the folder, but the most important part is the sharing settings. And so right here, I want to go into my sharing settings. And when you guys go into it, it's going to say private only for you. You're the only person that can take a look at it. So what you're going to need to do is click on advanced. And again, it'll say private only you. So we're going to hit change. And this is where you get different options. Now, I told my teachers, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I told my teachers that if they're just wanting to share something for their own students to hear, then you could do on anyone at Franklin Township with a link. And don't worry, you're not giving them really a link to your folder. You're giving them access to be able to hear the recording that you just made. Now, I do a lot of presentations and I'm doing that out in conferences. So I automatically change mine to anyone with a link. Now, I did tell our teachers, if you want to make an audio file and it's not just your students that you want to hear it, you want the parents to be able to hear it, then they need to go on anyone with a link. And the reason why is because if you make it only within your domain, but you share something out to parents, you're going to get inundated. And I mean inundated with people saying, request access, request access. It's all because of your sharing settings. Now, the benefit of setting up your folder first means that every time that I add a new recording, which you can tell I've got a boatload in here, every time that I add a recording, like I'm getting ready to do, because I'll do upload file, and I'm going to go to recent here. And when I go into it, it says online voice recorder. A tip for you, I would name your recording just so that you're not seeing a million that say online voice recorder. So then when I tap it, I'm going to hit open. And now it's going to be adding it to here. So once it adds it onto my files, I know it did the right settings because if I open it, so I don't need to hear myself. If I come over here, if I want to double check it, I can hit more actions and the share button. And I just wanted to show you that on this, because I dropped it into that folder, any documents inside of that folder, so any of my recordings automatically change to that setting. So it just saves me a boatload of time. Yes, I have to set it up initially, but now I'm good to go. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go back to my slides here, and I'm actually going to add audio to it. So now I'm prepared to go to insert audio. And when I do that, then it always will default to Google Drive. So this is the most recent one that I did, and it will always pop up as my most recent. If not, you can tap the word recent. I'm going to double click it and it says creating the audio file. And now you're going to notice this little icon over here that is my audio. And I always use that same tip that I shared earlier. I go Control Alt, and I'm going to use the letter K and tap on it, and it's going to keep making it bigger. And I can test it. So I'm recording my voice. So now you hear it. Now, this was something pretty cool that I learned that I started telling teachers. If I keep that icon selected and I do a 2-finger touch, I can actually replace the image so it doesn't look like a speaker. So I had teachers saying, oh my gosh, I could make it my Bitmoji and my Bitmoji starts talking. Yes, you can totally do that. That's definitely an option that you can do. So I'm going to take that sample off of there. And I'm going to jump down to slide 12 because I want to make sure, if you guys may already be familiar with her work, but Slides Mania is amazing. I'm showing you today how you can make your own templates in Google Slides or other presentations. But if you want, and if you're like, okay, I need something to get me started, you can always tap on here and it will take you to Slide Mania. I love this lady's work. What's awesome to me is that she's not an educator. She's actually a lady, I think she said she's like an accountant or something, but she just does this as a hobby. And so she makes all of these different presentations. And notice she even has by EDU for EDU. So she's got all kinds of different templates that you guys can use, all completely for free. She's got an education tab. I know those of you that were looking for different templates to do e-learning, she has all kinds of templates that are already made for you. So I want to make sure that you definitely know about her site. Okay. A couple other items that I'll mention in here because I know I'm getting to the end of this. And if you enjoyed this session, I'm going to have some other sessions today, but then next week I'll have a whole new selection and I'll have some more advanced items with design if you're interested in any of that. My next session is going to be about HyperDocs. If you're not familiar with them, you can stick around, hop on the next live session and learn more about them. If you just want to explore, I actually have a link here that will take you out to about, gosh, I have over 50 now of HyperDocs that I've created. Speaking of templates, I have all kinds of templates that we've designed for our district. If you want to tap on this template, this one takes you through, it has directions to kind of help you if you're wanting a template to get you started. Our district has done like the divide and conquer method, and I've got a link to a bunch more templates that are on here: related arts, writing, math, guided reading. Just tap on this link and it'll take you to a Google document that has all kinds of options that are on there. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, check out the comments for the last bits, and I will stick around if you guys have questions, and then we'll wrap this session up. This is what I do not, when you're saying you're going to the next slide. Oh, you're saying that you're not seeing what I'm doing, or that you're not seeing the page that I'm on. You should be able to see that. I'm sorry if you weren't able to. If not, you can just go back and you can type in exactly what it is that I was saying, like the online voice recorder. I'll put that in here. Voice recorder. So that's one of them. And then let me see here. I was trying to remember the other one that I mentioned. Oh, I haven't mentioned this one yet. A lot of people already know about it, but remove.bg is great to use to remove a background of an image. So that's another one that's nice to put on there. So I'll show my own comment. So it was online voice recorder. And then again, remove.bg is really good to remove the background of an image. That's another one that's nice. Okay. Alrighty. I'll stick around for another minute or so, but if not, thanks for joining for this session. And again, the next session is going to be on HyperDocs if you're interested. If you want to tell anybody else, you can have them subscribe to my YouTube channel, and it will let you know the next time that I have events coming up. Otherwise, thanks a lot for joining today.